any leader to be successful, there has to be clarity of purpose. Any leader themselves are very self-assured. They're not insecure. They don't feel threatened. Is when they actually are able to listen to another point of view. When women tend to be a little bit more assertive, they're seen as being aggressive, whereas a man can get away with a bit of that. You don't join an organization to be number one popular person, right? It's not a popularity contest. You've been hired for a reason, and you've got to learn to navigate and negotiate your impact and influence. So I think cultures vary in every company.
Yes.
You have to have the ability to adapt. So you have to be a Renaissance person, somebody who can really understand all aspects of a business and therefore have the ability to connect the dots, not just within the business, but even outside. So you get your first job basis your skills, but your second job is basis your delivery and reliability.
Hi, Meenu, and welcome to the AboutHer Show, a show where we get trailblazing women to share the story of their lives with us. To tell us about their successes, failures, challenges, all of that, so that not only do they get a platform to showcase themselves, but they also help us inspire other women. Women who are out there who have dreams, ambitions, but for some reason have not been able to fulfill those dreams. So we want them to listen to these kind of conversations, get inspired, and just go follow their dreams. And then, along with women, we also get men on the show, men who champion such trailblazing women because we believe that for a truly gender inclusive world, men and women need to be allies in this journey. Now, when it came to you and doing a podcast with you, well, one of our classmates suggested it about a year and a half ago. And I said, yes, of course, I would love to do it. And the fact that I have known you for so many years, 30 plus years, 40 maybe, and we may not have kept in touch, but I think we were never out of touch also, thanks to social media and, those random meetings that we had once in a while. So we kind of were in touch. And of course, I was following your career path. I could see through social media what you were doing, how you had risen to where you were, and from where then you decided to move on. So, really, a fascinating journey. We would definitely like to know more about it. So, once again, a very, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Thank you for thinking of me and having me on this platform. I will say I do feel truly blessed and just grateful for the opportunities I've had.
Yes, I guess in some ways we all should and we do. So fine, let's get started with the first question, which, as I understand, you've spent over 3 decades shaping narratives at the highest levels. So now, when you look back, what do you think truly defines credible leadership in communications?
So I will say credible leadership in communications is no different from any credible leadership, right? And leadership really is all about inspiring people, providing a vision that sort of has a common shared goal. So I don't see that very different from either in communications or any leadership, right?
Okay.
What I will say for any leader to be successful, there has to be clarity of purpose and then being able to take people along that path and the journey to achieving their goals.
Right.
But the element that really adds a lot more credibility, and to me, that sort of gets people aligned to a person is also their, what you may call it ethics, you can call it integrity, you can call it principles, values. And I think that really is the core to credible leadership, that authenticity comes with that when you are guided by a certain set of values and principles which are applied no matter what the situation, how the situation arises. Right. So to me, that's what really makes for a credible leadership. And obviously within that, it's about being empathetic to people and being able to build an environment in which they feel safe to engage and contribute. So I would say those are really the elements that I see as credible leadership.
Great. Actually, you have a point. Of course, leadership is leadership no matter where. And if you are able to carry the people along with you, that makes
Yeah.
all the difference. I mean, the ability to do that, whether it is through your listening skills or your empathy or your patience or whatever you need, if you're able to do that, then truly you are a credible leader.
Yeah.
So, as I again understand, you've been a trusted advisor to multiple C suites. So, tell me what separates a leader who listens from those who merely hear the advice, especially in moments of pressure and stress?
Again, the way I look at it is when you're able to give people the ability to disagree,
Right.
hear them out, and yet inspire and influence them to a direction that meets the goals, right? Sometimes you also have to change your perspective because they may have a valid point of view. So
Correct.
I think to me, it is when when a leader themselves are very self-assured, they're not insecure, they don't feel threatened,
Hmm.
is when they actually are able to listen to another point of view. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't agree, sometimes they find a better way to make things happen.
Right.
Sometimes you get an input which is points out certain challenges which you may not have thought of, because not good ideas can come from anywhere.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I think the ability, having that confidence and self-assuredness is imperative. And that's what makes a leader that much more able to listen, because when you're not threatened, you
Yes.
will listen.
I think being secure, like with so many other things in life, if you're secure in your own self, then
Yeah.
you will definitely, understand that you need to listen to others. As you said, not everybody can get great ideas, good ideas all the time. And there is always something to be gained out of listening to other people who may have a better way of doing something. And there is no harm in exploring that, in understanding what they have to say. But yes, definitely you have to be secure in your skin to be able to do that. All
Yeah.
right. So, Meenu, you're globally recognized for crisis and issues management. So, tell me, what does crisis reveal about organizations which success hides? Because normally, when you look at organizations, it is people are talking about how successful they've been, what they have done, what goals, what targets, all of that. But definitely, there is a story behind how they handle or how they deal with the crisis. So, could you tell us something about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually quite an interesting question, because I don't think anybody ever really looks at revelations from crisis.
Yeah,
And if I go back to the same thing about values that you have as a leader,
right.
it's also values that as a company you propound and live by, right? In a crisis, if you just to be able to get over a crisis or kill a cycle short, you get you forget your values, is when your real, in a way, your real character or the issues show up. And that shows up that the organization was never really stuck to those values. I mean, take, for example, um, the most recent Indigo,
Right.
right? When the whole, it just showed a certain value for the organization. They lost so much of brand equity. I mean,
Correct.
and, the CEO has just resigned, and whatever the reasons may be, but essentially people were taken aback. It was an airline known for its timeliness. It was for, you know, effective, efficient service. May not be for its, uh, you know, experiences that much, but more for efficiency and services. And then suddenly to be let down, that that just showed that the company's values, right? So I think it's, you take an example of Amazon. No matter what happens, its customer is their biggest. Uh, they're always so customer focused, so customer focused, that even if there have been instances when I first started working with them where we talked about how they saw these trends of where people were sort of conning them, right? But what the simple belief was, one customer, to put a policy in place to solve for one customer is bad for the other 999. So if this one customer is making money off us, let him. Because I'd rather give the same opportunity to, let's say, to exchange or return a good, because I value those 999 customers, and that doesn't change. That has always been their value prop and will continue to be. So it's that values that show up when a crisis hits, and that makes a difference in keeping your brand reputation alive.
And also keeping you alive, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Keeping my job safe. I mean, not mine
Yours
anymore.
and the company also, because if you don't have those values, see now what's happening to Indigo, it's the same thing. So if you don't have values, obviously somewhere, the organization, the structure, all of it is going to fall apart. So that's actually a very, very, how should I say, a hard-hitting revelation that yes, you've got to have some ethics, principles, morals in place so that when any kind of calamity, any kind of crisis strikes, you can hold on, you can stay there. All right.
And you use that as your compass.
Absolutely.
To react, to plan your next actions.
Correct.
So all of that, it comes from those values.
Right. So, Meenu, this is, as you know, a woman-centric podcast. So obviously, there have to be questions related to women leaders and all of that. So my next question is, with respect to that. So now, as I understand at senior levels, women are often, expected to be composed, empathetic, compassionate, unflappable, sometimes even more than men. And if I may add so, generally more than men. So, did you ever feel this kind of, added emotional or behavioral expectation? And if you did, then how did you navigate it without diluting your authority?
I think the new generation, and I've had the opportunity to work with several sets of generations now, right? In 35 years, there are many generations that come and go. And I think the expectation is similar from both men and women.
Okay.
It's just, I think what happens is if women tend to be a little bit more assertive, they're seen as being aggressive, whereas a man can get away with a bit of that. But I've always believed, at least in my own career, what I've always followed is you've got to be true to yourself, right? And if it means you speak the truth, you should, and you shouldn't have to worry about that. It's how you may do it varies. And look, there have been instances where I did not quite exactly follow each time my, I may have lost my cool or seem to have come across aggressive. And then you get feedback and you learn to deal with it and work around it. You've still got to find ways of impact and influence, which, which help you serve your purpose, but you can't back away from not being true to yourself.
Right.
So I think, and there are many ways you can get around the ability to impact and influence people, which are not necessarily just focused on, being an aggressive self. But essentially, that shouldn't stop anybody from being able to speak the truth.
Right. So, yes, so that means if you as a woman have certain, how should I say, traits or attributes, you stick to them no matter what. So even if the other person...
And at the end of the day, it's not a popularity. You don't join an organization to be number one popular person, right? It's not a popularity contest. You've been hired for a reason, and you should sort of work towards that goal of what you've been hired for, the objective you've been hired for. I have always believed that.
Right. So, Meenu, Google, Amazon, Microsoft. Yeah, the best.
And JWT.
Yes, of course. So, having led communications at some of the world's most influential companies, what surprised you most about how power actually operates inside these organizations?
I mean, I'd love to hear more from you in terms of what you mean by that question, but all of these three companies have very different cultures. So I'm going to answer something and let me know if that's what you were looking at. Otherwise, I sort of go back and talk about it. They all have very different cultures, right? And it's true for every company. Every company has a different culture. And you've got to learn to navigate and negotiate your impact and influence. If you're at a leadership level, you have to be able to impact and influence. And different organizations require different ways to do that. When it's a data-driven company, you better have your data right. If it's a customer-focused company, you better be clear that what you're talking about is actually beneficial to the customer. If it is revenue-focused, you've got to be clear on the business impact. Sometimes it's a combination of all three, or even more. And sometimes it's individual led. So then you've got to find other stakeholders that can impact that influence. Right. So I think cultures vary in every company. You have to have the ability to adapt and find the right ways within that to maneuver. Is that what you were asking?
Yes. So what you're saying is that, first of all, you've got to understand the culture of the organization that you have joined, see how it works, and then how you can adapt to it. Because obviously they are not going to change the culture for you. You have to understand that culture and try to make the best of it. So different.
Yes, and I will say, no company's culture is that rigid, right? It's not A plus B and this is it and that's no more. Every company, for it to grow and succeed to the levels these companies have the capabilities. It's just that offer the opportunities and platforms for you to bring in different. After all, when they hire people from outside, they want a different view. They want a different perspective. Yes. But you just got to know what would be the right way to influence.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say it's more that than anything else.
Right.
Because they're open to it. They won't get where they get without having that ability to, bring in diverse opinions.
Absolutely. That's so true. Okay. So tell me, you set up communication functions from scratch at Amazon India, and then earlier in your career also. So when you did something like this, what are the first non-negotiables when you build a function that first must earn trust? Because you're starting something from scratch and you've got to make it big, make it grow. So what are certain things that you need to keep in mind?
Yeah, so firstly, I did it for Amazon India. I won't claim all of Amazon, just Amazon India.
Yeah, India, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I would think, look, any function is all about the people, right? And a function such as ours, which especially if you sit at the leadership table, and as this function should, because it is all about brand value and reputations, it is important that the people you bring in have the ability to connect the dots. To be a successful comms function, you have to have people who can connect the dots, because it's, my first boss said this to me, and I've never forgotten that, is that to be a comms person, you need to be a Renaissance person, because you work with every single department in the company, which means you need to understand what they operate, what is important for them, what are their objectives, what are their goals, and how, you sort of, because you don't just do external, you also do internal, and external is also a lot about what's happening within the company. So you have to be a Renaissance person, somebody who can really understand all aspects of a business and therefore have the ability to connect the dots, not just within the business, but even outside, because you're operating in a world outside. If you're trying to reflect the company's image, you're doing it in an outside world, and you have to be able to understand what's happening around in the world and how does your company fit into that. It could be an industry, could be regulation, could be a number of things, right? So therefore, the person, for me, it's always about somebody who can do that. And then I guess, always the ability to speak truth to power. As I said, to me, that's very important because if you don't do that, you're not serving the company. You're actually putting it in a vulnerable situation. So have the ability to do that. Last but not, wouldn't say last, but equally important, you've got to be very focused on what the business objectives are. You don't do comms just for the sake of comms.
Yes.
It's always got to be tied to a business objective, right? It could be a short-term one, it could be a long-term one, but has to have some impact on the business and take the business further, whether it's through reputation, through any, just even consumer comms, right? When you're trying to get customers to experience a product, get them excited. And so it's always got to serve a purpose. It's not just about doing it for the sake of doing it.
Right.
And last but not least, I say this to everybody, to all my teams, you get your first job basis your skills, but your second job is basis your delivery and reliability.
Absolutely. Very well said.
You can have all the skills in the world, but unless you're able to deliver to that business objective and do it repeatedly. Sometimes it's not just about the business objective, but also if you've committed to a stakeholder or a client, you've got to make sure you deliver against the SLAs you've committed to. And if you can't, for whatever reason, have the comfort and the self-assuredness to go back and say, I don't think I can do this right now because of XYZ. So I am going to do XYZ instead. So, have those, never let anybody be caught by surprise. So to me, reliability, ability to connect the dots, and be able to speak truth through the power are very critical.
Yes.
Assets that I look for in any person.
And I think a very important point that you mentioned, especially in this space, is understanding the business thoroughly. Because communication is not only about the internal or the external, it's both. So if you understand the business, it is only then that you will be able to communicate to the outsiders what you need to do and also make the insiders understand why you're doing certain things in a certain way. So I think a comprehensive and a complete understanding of the business is a non-negotiable, right?
Business, the environment, the industry, everything. That's why that Renaissance person, you have to have the full perspective. Because when you're communicating, you're not communicating to just one audience. You communicate to multiple sets of audience. Sometimes it's investors, sometimes it's government, sometimes it's users, sometimes it's your partners. So you've got to be able to have a full, comprehensive understanding and approach of both the company, the industry, as well as the environment in which you're operating.
So tell me, Meenu, now in today's day and age, we are living in a completely data-driven world, right? Most of the things, most of the actions we take are based on data, and that's how it is. So as I understand, you devised a proprietary PR measurement tool long before data-driven communication became mainstream or became the way it is today. So tell me, what do you think we still get wrong about measuring reputation and impact, if we do?
Yeah, and to be fair and to be honest, the measurement that I had devised was very rudimentary. I mean, I wouldn't touch it today, but it was meant to be just taking it a little forward than those days when I was starting out. It was all about advertising equivalent, like you've got this write up. If you had put an ad, this was how much it would have cost you, which completely was dismissive of the credibility that our work brought. So I'd done some work on bringing that credibility into that measurement. So that was it. That was more a output-driven measurement. The way I look at measurement is you've got to look at it in three ways. There's an input, right? If you don't do anything, you're not likely to get any results. So it's not going to succeed. And then there is, you do something and there's an output that comes with it. And that's what I had worked on then. But there is the whole thing of outcome. I mean, if you're really trying to achieve those business objectives, then what was the outcome of whatever outputs you did? So yes, you did great inputs, you did great outputs, but what about the outcome? And that's where the industry has always had a little bit of a challenge because, look, reputations don't get built just by comms. Reputations get built by an entire experience that either a user or an employee or a regulator or partners have with an organization through their life journeys. Right? So it's very difficult to measure that. Like, what did this function add to that? So, and I think the industry is still trying to work that through. We haven't found, it's still very much more on the output based. Still, like, if, I wouldn't even talk about the media so much now. There's a lot more that's happening with influencers, etc. So you can measure, yes, how much engagement was there, but you could also measure, yes, in some cases, did it lead to either the visits to your site or any sales that happened? So there is progress that's happening. But if you were to look at it just from a pure reputation, it's a very complex problem to solve. And I don't think it has happened yet.
Okay. So I guess it will.
Because reputation is built with multiple vectors.
Yes. But then, so in a way, like you were, of course, you think that what you did was not really great. But I think just taking that first step also sometimes makes a lot of difference because you're thinking out of the box and you're thinking of something, a better way of doing things. So even though, yes, at this point, it may seem like very basic and rudimentary to you, but at that point, I'm sure it made a difference.
Yes, and at the end of the day, what it shows is that we were focused on measuring. We weren't just doing things for the sake of it. We were focused on measuring some of that stuff. Plus, also, and after that, there are many things, many other approaches that took to measurement, even after that, like several different methodologies one adopted, but they were not, proprietary. They were working with other measuring agencies to figure out what are the areas we should be looking at and how do we measure the success of any of the companies that I worked for. So I did a lot of work in that, and that to me is a commitment to making sure we are able to show the effectiveness of our work, right?
Right.
And gauge the effectiveness. So that certainly, and I think the measurement, the way I also looked at it, there were many things you could do from an outcome perspective. But you could use some of those tools to actually share with your stakeholders. Like, this is where our competitor is doing well. This is where we are falling behind. Or these are the areas we should be looking at, because if you compare these to another company with a great, with a huge reputation, these are the vectors they are speaking about. Or you look at, the conversations today in social or media are about XYZ, but we are not speaking about them. So you can use measurement in many ways.
Right.
It can also be used to evolve your program.
Yes. I think measurement in itself is a big indicator because, you can learn so much from it because it is telling you
exactly
concrete, quantifiable, you say, measures or numbers that this is what needs to be done or this is what has been done. So I think the fact that you can quantify and communicate, I think that makes all the difference.
That's right.
So a woman leader. What I see is that many women leaders speak about the tension between being respected and being liked. Because I think as women, we are always taught that you should behave in a certain way that people like you. So I guess even when you're out there leading an organization or leading a function, that still somewhere stays with you. So tell me, in your experience, is there a real trade-off between the two, and how did you personally deal with it or restore it or handle it?
Yeah, I think I spoke to it a bit earlier. Again, me personally, and I think, look, it'll be naive to say nobody cares about being liked. We all like to be liked. Who doesn't like to be liked? And nobody wants to be known as that horrible person. We all like to be liked. And that is true. But the way I've looked at it is that I'm not here to win a popularity contest. If there is a faith and belief in what I'm saying, and that may be against popular opinion, I will still say it. Eventually, it's, the powers to be their choice, whether they want to accept it or not. But I will say it. How you say that is what I think makes a difference. And that's from an upward level. for people who are working with you or with your teams or cross-functional, right? If you can work towards aligning goals and provide that vision of where you want to go, I don't think everybody comes to work wanting to achieve something.
Yeah.
So there shouldn't, yes, again with them as well, you've got to find ways that make it appealing for them to actually want to align with you and agree to align with you. But beyond that, you've just got to stick to the truth. And sometimes you may not be popular for it, but that's okay. Like I said, I wasn't hired to be the Miss Popular. I was hired to make an effective impact on the organization. And so if I'm doing that, there will be certain bumps on the road. As long as there's no roadkill, you can get over the bumps.
So you would say that between a man and a woman, both would kind of handle it the same way. I mean, women don't have to work harder than men to do that.
I hear this all the time. So I'm presuming there is definitely some truth to it. and yes, I think there is a tendency when a woman is much more assertive, there is a tendency to sort of call it out versus if a man is being assertive. Yes, that happens. But again, you've got to be true to yourself, right?
Yes. So even though it may be harder for a woman to be true to herself, at the end of the day, this is what you've got to do. Because this is your work, this is why you've been hired. And like you said, you're not here to win a popularity contest. So just stick to
Plus,
your
yeah.
work you need to do. Okay.
Plus, all of us spend 8 hours of the day coming to work. If there you're going to be constantly holding yourself back or not being able to deliver what you really believe in, then I'm not sure how happy you'll be.
Right.
I will say you don't have to unnecessarily be aggressive.
Correct.
I know several women leaders who have just such a beautiful way of putting things across that they want to say in the most respectful manner. And if you can achieve that, that is brilliant. And I've often looked at those women and felt very inspired by it. I was not always one of them, but
I think people have different ways of doing things, of course, and we always have, reasons to learn, and we always have people who we get inspired by. So it is always a learning process, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Meenu, another woman-centric question. Now, as I followed your career and, I was going over your LinkedIn and all of that, now you've been highly visible and influential, most of the time throughout your career. So again, do you think women are still subtly discouraged from stepping fully into visibility, especially when their voice challenges the powers to be?
It's very interesting. When you say visibility, and so I'm not sure what that means, but if I look at today, look at the tech industry, right? Whether it's Google, headed by a woman who is the CEO today for India, Anthropic, which has just opened the office, again, woman CEO, Meta, Sandhya is there, India and Southeast Asia lead, Salesforce, led by Arundhati. These are all women leaders, and they are very visible. So I'm not sure that, I'm not sure it always applies. And even if you look back in early 2000s, and I forget the years now, but early 2000s, two industries which are seen as male-dominated industries, tech industry and the finance industry, right? If you look at that time, every single bank had a woman leader. Yeah. Every single tech company pretty much had women leaders. There were CEOs, both the tech industry and the finance. There was a phase in that time that all the CEOs of tech companies, like 7 out of 10 were women CEOs. All the banks, all women leaders. So, and they're very visible. They're very much out there talking. So I'm not sure it's that they're discouraged or anything. I think there's a lot to do also with um, our own, and I don't want to sort of dismiss any feelings that people may have, but I think there's a lot to do with your own self and where you draw your restrictions, where you draw your lines, right? And these women succeeded.
Yes,
What's
I
stopping?
think you're right. It has a lot to do with you as a person as well. There could
Yeah.
be forms of discouragement, whether they are subtle or they are very, very obvious, but it's the way you handle them, it's the way you deal with them. So I guess women have learned, and even though they are there, we don't really care. Yes?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's always about, yes, yourself. Yeah, of course, I don't want to, you know, we at a certain privilege and level of society do have that privilege to be able to go out and speak, right?
Right.
And I think countless other women who work, not just work outside, work at home, and then they have to deal with all of the family situations, etc. And they're still, looking after them. So there are definite realities.
Yeah.
But I think there is scope, and for any one of us to succeed, we have to redraw the lines that
Yes.
could be limiting for ourselves. So it's really, and of course, you need a support system. There's no question about that. Like, I mean, I was a single mom and working full time in these intense environments. If I didn't create a support system for myself, there was no way I could have done the work I've done. And that support system included friends, my mother, my sister, included my help. My help's been with me for 30 years. And there's no way I could have ever gotten to where I got to had it not been for her, because I always had somebody I know in the house who I could trust with my children.
Right.
So I think it's how you create that support system, and then just define your own boundaries. Don't let anybody else define your boundaries for you.
Very true. I think that's very, very important, because that is what the boundaries, the lines, all these things are essential, critical elements that we need to understand, that we need to draw, because that is how we are going to be able to follow our dreams, follow passion, or whatever we want to do.
And look, if you're good at what you do and you're able to show impact, then a lot of those discouragements drop by.
Absolutely.
On the side.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you've served as an independent director as well. So tell me, does this perspective, the communication perspective, change the way one looks at governance, ethics, long-term risk, and all of that?
So again, if you go back to what I mentioned, that a comms person is like a Renaissance person, right? So when I am in the company and sitting on a leadership table, I'm not looking at myself as a comms person only. I'm looking at myself as a business leader with a comms expertise, right? So I don't just comment when they say, okay, how do we communicate this? No, I'm actively participating in any of whether it's the regulatory issues, whether it's the marketing issues, whether it's governance or risk management, all of that. You play an active part in that. So it's not very different from what the role you play in the company at a leadership table versus what you play as an independent director. Okay. It's just within the company, you have a much better view and visibility, and therefore, and in many ways, you do a lot of the execution as well. As an independent director, you may not have that visibility, therefore, the ability to ask the right questions.
Right.
Becomes very critical. But, the shades are, it's pretty much the same approach for any leader. However, because you have a much better understanding of the company when you're internal, right? That's where the thing is to be able to ask the right questions to get the right answers and therefore evaluate and contribute more meaningfully. I would say that's really the only difference, but otherwise, pretty much as an independent director or as a business leader in a company, you are looking at all aspects. So you may have a specialization in something, but you are looking at. Okay. At least that's what my experience has been. Yeah.
So we cannot, kind of not ask you questions about your sports background, because that is how I remember you from school. So definitely there's basketball days and then of course adventure sports and all that. So my question is from representing India in basketball to adventure sports now. How has sport shaped your relationship with pressure, failure, and recovery?
I think it completely shaped my personality
Hmm.
in many, many ways. I mean, besides the good genes I had of my parents,
Hmm.
the conditioning comes a lot from the sports, right? It taught me it taught me the measure and the value of hard work
Yeah.
because you were on court practicing every day without fail. While everybody was waking up later, you got up in the morning, got onto a DDC bus, got to school, and exercised before you did a whole day of school. And then you did some matches in the afternoon. So hard work. Nothing. You can be most talented, but unless you put effort into it, it's not going to work. So I think hard work is what it taught me. Second, it teaches you teamwork. And mine was a team sport, so it teaches you teamwork. And that's what is needed in any work environment because nobody succeeds alone. You have to work with the team. That's where success lies. And so, therefore, it taught me teamwork. It also taught me, uh, the ability to handle failure
Right.
because you don't win every single match. I wish I could say I won every single match. We won a lot of matches, but there were many we lost as well. So it teaches you that ability to get up and get onto the court again and again, despite not having done or won or performed well one day. So that resilience that you need is what sports teaches you. The ability, the thing to be able to live with failure. The other thing I would say is, it. We talked about team. We talked about resilience. We talked about
Hard work.
team hard work. Yeah, I would say those things really did shape my approach in everything that I've done. Plus, my closest friends are all basketballers. We all played basketball together. So there's a whole lot of, I owe a lot to sports.
You can see. So you're right. I mean, these are actually basic life skills that I think sports just kind of drills into you.
Yeah,
Other
and sorry,
people,
the fourth thing I was going to
yeah,
say was adaptability because you meet different teams
yes, yeah,
and you have to learn to adapt your playing style
correct.
to the team you're in opposition to. And some teams have a different strategy. You have to adapt your strategy to that strategy. So the adaptability, the agility that is needed, because you can change the team strategy in minutes. Like,
Yes.
you just need to be adaptable and agile as well.
Yeah, and thinking on the ground. So I think all these are skills that you need in life.
Yeah.
Some people may take a lifetime to learn these skills, but if
Yeah.
you've been playing a sport, so right from that early age when you started, you kind of get the hang of it and you understand how critical important they are.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So, looking at the next gen. Now, when you look at the young women of today who are entering, the space of communication, leadership, and all that, tell me what mindset will matter the most for them to sustain long, influential careers? Mind you, I'm not talking about skills, I'm talking about mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for anybody to succeed today's world with all that's going on,
Yeah,
you have to have a learning mindset because things evolve very, very fast. And linked to that is the adaptability and agility because things change, so you have to be able to adapt. But I think the one thing that also really is important is asking the right questions.
yeah, okay.
Some could say making the right prompts with AI, but I put it as asking the right questions because this isn't just about asking questions of AI, but also the people you work with.
Correct, correct. So, yeah, so that learning mindset, being able to adapt, and of course, having a curious mindset as well, where you ask.
Yes, I would think that's a good way to put it. The curious mindset, yes, is just asking the right curiosity. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so Meenu, while we've come to the end of the conversation, we still have the rapid fire round, which is five
Sure.
quick questions, five quick answers.
And
So I ask you the question, so whatever comes first to your head, that should be the answer. So
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So the first one word that describes a credible leader.
Authenticity.
Okay, that's a good one. Next, basketball or boardroom? Where did you learn more about pressure?
Definitely basketball,
Okay.
which I took into the boardroom.
Yes. Yes.
Very different, but yeah, definitely basketball.
Okay. The next one. A habit that has stayed with you all these years, 30, 35 years, that's always stayed with you.
Punctuality.
Okay. All right.
I'm often the first person to arrive, and I have to wait. And I never learn my lessons. Even when I'm invited as a guest for a dinner, I'm always the first person. Always.
So that kind of
And
resonates
start
with me. And you have to wait for the rest of the
on
world.
time.
Yeah?
And start on time.
Yes. 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 Okay.
Yeah.
The next one. Something people would be surprised to know about you.
I always feel I'm such an open book. Well, I'll just put it out there. I'm actually deeply scared of water. Deeply, deeply scared of deep seas.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm an advanced open water diver.
Wow. Wow. That's like, okay, quite contradictory, but there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. And the final one. Success today means ... Fill in the blanks
Is this for me or generally?
for you.
Oh, success for me is actually at this stage of my life, it's more about making memories with people that matter to me.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's so true. And the definition does change over a period of time. How we view success when, say,
Oh,
we
yeah.
had our careers, and now it has definitely changed. So, yeah, making memories with your loved ones, I think, is the most beautiful thing. Okay, Meenu, so that now brings us to the end of the conversation. So, very nice. And it was lovely connecting with you and talking to you at length after so many years, getting to know more about you, understanding your journey, and why and how you are the inspiration that you've become today. So, all the best to you for all your future endeavors. And thank you once again for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Sangeeta. It was lovely having this chat. Thank you. And all the best. You're doing a great show, and I know you've won several recognitions with it. So well deserved. Thank you for thinking of me.
You were there on my mind, you know that, for a very long time.
Yes, I know.
Thank you for tuning in to the About Her show. If you enjoyed this episode, there's plenty more from where that came from. Our previous guests have shared some amazing stories, so be sure to catch up on past episodes. To keep up with our inspiring conversations and to never miss an update, hit subscribe, rate, review, and share the love. Follow us on social media for some great content, and don't forget to check out our website www.aboutherbysangeeta.com for stories that resonate, inspire, and empower. Know a remarkable woman or an inspiring man blazing a trail? We'd love to hear from you. Drop us a note at web.abouther@gmail.com and let's bring their story to life on the About Her show.